Hello, this is Dr. Scott Young, and today we're going to talk about the quantum financial system and how it works outside of the system. Coming right up. Okay, so how do you see this thing working? That's what I hear all the time, okay? When I first kind of tell you about something, if you want to get some more extra help, it talks a lot about this in many ways. It's called Revelations of the Red Pill. There's actually an Easter egg on the front of the book cover that my book guy, he actually created. He goes, I hope you don't mind. And I was like, no, it's totally fun. So anyways, you can kind of see that on there as well. Okay. What I want to do is kind of draw out a box here, okay? So this is the QFS Quantum Financial System, okay? Now, I want you to see in your head, many of you have looked at your credit report. Now, credit report, what it does is it kind of has, all of your inside the whole report. If you look at it like on an iPad, you can look on a computer, you can get the printout kind of thing, and it'll have like all of your basic assets, and mostly it's about debts, okay? But it includes your assets when you have that. So it'll have all of your credit cards, it has all of your, car payments and, other loan type of payments. Sometimes they don't get everything on there too. It's really kind of strange in there. I'll tell you that the credit report system has really been bad. Something's sticking on me here. The credit report system has always been bad and it's gotten worse in 2009. They would throw a lot of business debts on the personal side. And it was very, very annoying to me. And people are like, I remember a credit card company was like, most people really appreciate that. And I was about ready to get her into some four-letter words like 3 or 4 times over. And the reality is no one wants that. You always want to be able to separate the business and personal and not have to show it on, what the business is doing on your personal stuff. Because the business is paying for many more things than a personal on a giant level. We're talking about cost of goods and all this other stuff that the person shouldn't have to take as a debt to income ratio kind of thing. All right. But the quantum financial system, there's a couple things that were happening that you got to see here. Basel III compliance is something that I have confirmed personally with many bankers that this kind of thing happens. And each of the banks had to be Basel III compliant, okay? What that would do is allow them to enter the system. Why do you need the banks in there? Because you people aren't bad. I'm guessing that you're not bad. So your bank accounts of all kinds have to be in here. Your 401k kind of stuff is in here, okay? On the other side of it, you're gonna have your car, house kind of thing. You're gonna have any credit cards, kind of thing. Like looking at your limits and other things like that. Now, this obviously down the road, after there's a one-time Jubilee event, okay? People don't understand. It's a Debt Jubilee. The purpose of the Debt Jubilee, this is really important, is to kill the cabal. Because they make money off of every dollar you spend in compound interest, okay? So the enemy over here, one of the enemies is compound interest. Now, if you don't understand compound interest, it basically is percentages that have to have amortization schedules to figure out. Okay, you should be able to look at if there is interest down the road, and I'm not convinced by it in the banking system, but if there is interest, simple interest. I mean, I've done other ones. If you haven't watched this, go look at NESARA Explained. And the second part of the series, in the debt part, we talk a lot about how that works. And I show like a huge $600,000 loan. It's a business kind of thing, off of 5% over 10 years. And you'll see the difference. It's just gigantic. The difference is just a 5% over 600,000 is like $30,000 of debt versus $172,000 of debt in compound interest. And that is the enemy of all of this stuff. And that's how the banks, through the Fed and the cabal, they make their money. So this is how the cabal bankers make that money out, okay? It is canceled in the system. It has no ability to do that. And I'll show you more about that. Well, just pull this off here for a second. The other part is other debts. Specifically, now they'll all be underneath the compound interest. So you're gonna say car, house, credit card, student loans, okay? All of those things are built into that system with that. Now there's another thing that most people don't understand, and it's the IRS. The IRS is the financial arm of the cabal. Now again, if you haven't looked that up, go check that out, because I actually have a lot of information on that kind of thing. So they want to be a part of this system, and that's why they have these things called, the credit report. And it is all about your debt to income levels. And they want you to be if you're less than 30%, obviously you're in good shape. Now, if you have good, pretty darn good credit, you're going to have around 12% debt to income ratio. But frankly, when you when you push up at 30 to 50%, you're in bankruptcy levels. Okay, so when you're up at around 30%, and many of you right now, this is June 21st of 2022, are fighting, and just like I am fighting my own way. Prices are just off the charts. Things are happening, and there's a lot of fear that is going on in here. Okay, now. So what do you do? Since most people cannot imagine the Fed sitting over here and not entering in the system, that's why most people don't understand NESARA. They think, wait, what about the central banks? Okay, central banks and Fed, the same kind of crap, okay? They have no ability to come into the system. So how does this work? When the White Hats shut this thing off, you have to shut off all of this stuff. You have to shut off this, and you have to shut off all of this. These things cannot come in to the system. So there's a couple other things that happen inside here. Let me get a right pen here. So this has to be gold backed. And there's plenty of cash to do this. Now, how are they doing this one-time Debt Jubilee? That is in the St. Germain Fund. And this thing has won with 45 zeros on the end of it. It is massive. It's been predicted, and what we did is we took it from these idiots. Okay, so if we're taking this from these idiots, basically we're making them pay for all the debts. Now, I know if you're watching this for the first time and jumping in the middle of this, you're going, are you high? You're like, you can't possibly, they wouldn't let you do this. This is what you have to say. Again, we've talked about this before. but look up Executive Order 13818. And anyone who has crimes against humanity will lose their property. And it talks about you cannot transfer or move or anything else. That is a bankruptcy of the cabal. Now, if you're bankrupting the cabal, the debts of any type cannot enter the system. I don't care who you think you've listened to of the Truther movement. There is a guy, I will not say his name, but he makes me crazy because he keeps saying, well, interest will be written off. No. The whole debt has to be written off because it has to exit out of the system and into this system over here. They have to exit out those debts. Now, in the future, you can get into debt again. I just don't exactly know how that will be, okay? There are debt vehicles, but there will not be in the same way that you think of it. There will be ways of having debt because people don't walk around and have $200,000 to buy a house, $400,000 to buy a house, okay? But it will be more likely in a fee-based system and much more simple to pay off, okay? And that's fine to have that kind of thing. That actually spurs economies when we have that, but it's something that both sides can win. See, the debts of this kind of crap, okay, are not winnable for you. They're not made to be winnable. They're made to take from you to wipe you out. And they don't have a problem with bankruptcy. They really don't, because they're making oodles of money off of you, and then you get to exit the system for 7 years, not have to pay it back. They just kind of wash the debt out. They just kind of do this. But you've got to take these guys out at the top levels. And when you do that, it exits the system into this, so that none of this stuff can enter into the system of any type. They're completely pulled out of the system, which means that the credit report and a debt to income ratios are meaningless. And that's and I was talking to a banker here recently, and she was struggling with this one thing. She's like, well, this is how we make money. And I'm like, guess what? There's more than one way to make money, okay? And you're going, well, this wasn't a cabal bank, okay? Just get it. How can you make money when, and there's ways when money people look at this. When the value is inside of the debt, you make money off of that system. And that's what this whole system is to do this. And there are there's the 14th Amendment on the 4th section, okay? Read it, it's very fascinating. It came in the 1870s, I want to say 71, but I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head. So it comes right after the Civil War, little bit after the Civil War. And essentially what that system is talking about, or what that situation is that when you create insurrection, when the government specifically, the debts that it creates are not payable. What have these people done? What would be considered insurrection? Here's the interesting part, is having foreign agencies being involved with it. The Fed is central banks are all connected together. That's the definition of insurrection, okay? That's why Trump is doing this so legally, it's not funny. So you do not have to pay the debt system that sits out here, including the Fed's debt. The national debt, that's also outside the system too. That's why the IRS pays into the debt system. This whole thing has to be exited, okay? And it cannot pierce the veil of the QFS because this thing is blockchained. It is one of the most unique ways. And Executive Order 138 818 actually is the legal vehicle of this. And we also have Article 1 of in Section 10 that says that debt cannot be paid with anything but gold and silver. Okay, and the fiat currency that these idiots make is a debt currency. Okay, it's built on the debt. That's what we have this thing called inflation. And so one of the things that also happens here is that because everything is gold back, inflation goes to zero. And most of you that can't happen. Yes, it can, because it's built upon, inflation is too much money, which reduces the pricing. That's what they love doing about it. Increases the debt. So when it's it's more expensive, you can't afford it. So you have to have debt to be able to buy that thing. Okay? And that's part of the system, and that's what they create the compound interest in the whole structure points in here. Do you know that Russia actually went to 5,200 rubles? This is about 4 months ago. 5,200 rubles to 1 ounce of gold. Their inflation rate is now 0. I have not seen what the prices are doing, but it's off the chart. They are in a really good state, okay? And it's fascinating because the cabal is so mad at the Russians. Have you noticed that? Do you know that there's a hearing aid manufacturer that said we won't ship hearing aids to Russian audiologists? I go, wait, what has the Russian audiologist done to you? If you want to be mad at a country, go ahead, but not shipping them and doing all these other things. And Russia just says, screw you, I'm not going to worry about you. And so they found other ways to have credit card processing and all this other stuff. And the world is bowing because they're going, we can't afford this, okay? And that is one of the reasons why gas prices is. So in some sense, Biden is correct, but not fully correct, okay? And so the Biden is dead anyway in many other ways. So this is the system that happens out here. And you're gonna see this thing come into effect, I mean, really quickly here, okay? It's been set up, it's already been done. All they have to do is flip the switch, okay? When the switch goes over, this is the, I want you to think of a server, and it's like, boom, we set the server up, and boom, we flip it over into this system, and you will see the stuff, all the stuff floats off. Okay, all of your debts have a one-time event. It's not, and you're going to go, well, that's not fair. What about this and what about that? Stop talking about fair. The whole goal is this. This is the goal. Okay, it's not about fairness to the system here. It's not about fairness to you. And I'm going to leave you with this last one issue. We know a lady named Mary, and she doesn't know anything about this stuff. Okay, she's not on social media, a little bit older woman, very terrified personality, sweet woman in the world. If you ever met her, you know it, okay? She wore her mask all the time. She got the jab 3 times. And so she finds her husband. I mean, and they were like, protecting Mary, the daughter who was a bit disabled, and the husband was protecting Mary, for the most part. Like she didn't even get her gas, right? And Mary finds out that her husband falls ill, and so ill he's gonna die. And she's facing this reality when her daughter drops in the bathroom. And her daughter dies days before the husband does at the same time. And that's all jab related, by the way. This is what we believe, okay? So her daughter and her husband die within days of one another. How do you make it fair for Mary? Is there some way that we can make this thing fair? There's no way of making it fair. Stop asking me about fair, okay? This is all about killing the cabal and creating a new system. And I'm sorry that this doesn't happen. This is a war, and we have been in the middle of this war, and I hate every bit of this. I'm tired of it. I'm waiting for the movie to end. But I promise you it will be a cool thing when you see it finish here, okay? So again, you can kind of read Revelations of the Red Pill. You can go to drscottyoung.com and go grab one of those. It'll give you the way to kind of go get it. We're going to see this thing hit. And when you see it hit, that's where I think the EBS or the EAS, the emergency action message, is going to come out, and we're going to start seeing the sickness that actually intimates this portion. When it intimates this portion, it actually sets much of this stuff going, okay? And then you're going to see Trump come in and explain it later on. He's going to explain this is what he was doing in the quantum financial system. That's the basis of NESARA. And there's a whole bunch of other things that come along with it. Some of that stuff will happen a little bit later, but we'll have to understand, we'll have to really get what we're doing in here, okay? And that's why I want to explain it in a more graphic way to give you an understanding of it. So thanks so much.